start the session with a little bit interaction based on the first session. So if you can post a certain question, or if you have any queries, we can start with that. Or should we continue and then at the end we can take up all the queries together?
Start could be, sir. Continue, sir.
Okay, there is another one question that I can see. Actually, in Tanushri Sarkar, she is asking how can I conduct my pilot survey in qualitative research. Actually, in qualitative research, pilot survey is not conducted in the same sense that it is required in quantitative research, because in quantitative research the pilot survey is carried out mainly to validate certain instruments. Okay, so if you want to refine your service instruments with regard to several protocols, then you have to conduct a pilot survey. Or if you want to check the internal reliability of any scale that you are devising in terms of your statements, in terms of your variables, then you need to have a pilot test. In case of content analysis, in case of qualitative data analysis, when we conduct a pilot test, normally we go for analyzing the content of your schedule, or analyzing the content of your any kind of instrument that you have designed for obtaining data. So if you feel the content of your instrument with the help of which you are supposed to collect data is correct, or is vetted or ratified by a pool of experts, the experts may be constituted on the basis of academicians, researchers, practitioners, depending on to what extent you want to connect your research with the industry or the corporates, with the markets, or any social activist if you want to be in that area. So piloting in that sense is not required to that extent in qualitative data analysis, as it is required and almost imperative, almost mandatory in certain cases for quantitative. One of the major reason why pilot testing is almost mandatory for quantitative data analysis is, say for a particular researcher who is targeting a very big number of sample, okay, say 300 or 350, which is required to conduct that kind of a research. Now, to conduct a research on 300 plus sample size, you need to be very sure that all your instruments, with the help of which you are supposed to conduct the study, are in perfect working condition. That means they are free from any biasness, they are free from ambiguity, the scales are properly fit, the scale items are properly designed. So that is required, and as a result of which we need to conduct a pilot study. For qualitative data analysis, piloting means, if you still want to conduct a pilot analysis in qualitative data analysis, in most of the cases we have seen researchers are trying to identify the exact population. Okay, there are two aspects. One is identification, the locus of the exact population from where you will be collecting samples and conducting your research. That's a very important task of a qualitative researcher. And the second aspect is, whatever schedules you are designing, whatever content you are creating at the beginning of the research, that has to be vetted and ratified by a group of experts. So that can be done. That is normally now, these days we are having the content validity check. You have the SVCI, the scale content validity indexes, and then the item wise, content validity index checks. There are certain process with the help of which the content validity is checked before you release the schedules for research. So I will share one paper with all of you, whereby this CVI, that content validity index, is you can check how you can actually check your content validity, both at the scale level and as well as the item level. Okay, so mm, as we go forward, we can take up more question. If you have question, you directly write it in the chat box. We can take it up at a later stage. Now, in this particular session, as we have told that we have got certain understanding about the qualitative data analysis, and as I have said, or as I have shared with you, that qualitative data analysis has come of age, so to say. Okay, so qualitative data analysis, which was not very encouraged on behalf of the supervisors, also teachers also. They When we actually did our PhD in the in the early 90s, we did not find enough teacher around us who were big supporter of qualitative research work, because that basic notion, that basic idea, or the knowledge probably was not there. And there were limitations in terms of certain theories, certain backup models, certain frameworks, etc. But over the last 2.5 decades or so, the qualitative research has come of age, and the kind of approach and the kind of analytical techniques, and the kind of validation, and the kind of empiricism that has been inducted in the qualitative data analysis is remarkable. Okay, and one thing is for sure, that when you are creating theories, so when you are creating working hypotheses, when you are creating models, new models, when you are creating new framework, see, the qualitative research is the way to go, because that's the inductive way to do the research, whereby you don't have any foundational theory. Your basic objective is to develop a theory, or a working theory, or a working hypothesis, or a frame, which can later be taken up for any kind of, if you want to receive any kind of empirical support. But if you search the history of research, you will find that all the theories that have been developed are through the qualitative inductive process only. So most of the researchers are reluctant to take, because it doesn't give you a very objective kind of an output. Number one, it doesn't give you a very instant output, because developing a theory, it takes years. I can give you one example. Like back in 1985, there were three people, Parashuraman, Zitham, and Berry, Leonard Berry as Parashuraman, and Valerie Zitham. They were the three people who were trying to develop a scale which will help the consumers in perceiving service quality. So, services are very, very intangible in nature. So very difficult to perceptualize the quality of the services. You can easily perceptualize the quality of products which are very tangible. You can touch it. You can use all your senses to have certain perception with regard to the product quality. But with regard to service, and services are very unstandardized or heterogeneous in nature. So the same teacher comes every day in the class, delivers a lecture. It's very difficult to standardize his performance on a day-to-day basis. So if he delivers the same class, the same lecture for say 25 days in a month, it's very difficult to come. It's very difficult on behalf of the teacher also to maintain a standard, because when a human being is interacting with other human beings, standardization is almost impossible, because our psychological balance may not stay the same throughout those 25 days. So at that particular point of time, Valerie Zitham, Berry, and Parashuraman, they started developing a scale in 1995. it took almost 7 years before they actually established the scale at the global level across various contexts, and they changed perspectives over geographical locations, over communities, tested the scale. New variables were inducted, certain variables were expanded, certain variables were clubbed, and in 1992 they came out with the final version. So in 1985 they started. They came out with almost a 83 or 84 item scale. In 1988 they refined it, came down to 34 item scale, from 88 item scale to a 34 item scale. In 1992 they made it a 25 item scale, which is now well accepted. And later in 2001 or 2002 they came out with the eServ qual, the electronic service quality scale. So those series of observations, those series of studies that they conducted over those years, initially on the qualitative basis, they just tried to identify what are the perceptual variables, okay, before putting it into the empirical form study. Later on, a lot of quantitative study has taken place, and most interestingly, they use the term. They gave a nomenclature to their scale, service quality scale, very famously known as ServQual. Okay, service quality, so acronymed as ServQual. And what is interesting, the subsequent researchers, they made a lot of spin-off from that basic or fundamental scale. So there is a DineQual scale we have now with regard to restaurant services. We have a TourQual scale with regard to this tourism services. We have a HealthQual scale with regard to healthcare services. So a lot of niche services, they designed their scale on the basis of this fundamental ServQual scale. So that's very interesting. And at the same time, two other researchers they put forward another scale in 1992 at the same time. It is called ServPerf, Service Perfect, the Cronin and Taylor in 1992. So all these are results of qualitative qualitative research. Then the famous scale of theory of reasoned action and theory of planned behavior, which is used across the disciplines of social science. Those were a result of qualitative research. So most of the theories which are very prominent and later has been empirically tested and accepted across contexts, they started with this qualitative approach, qualitative research. So theory building is only possible if you are having a very inductive kind of a mindset. Now, as we have told that in this particular session, we will be focusing on actually just introducing you to certain software or application tools which you can use as a support to your data analysis. And as we have discussed, that there are 4 such tools which are very prominent, okay, and the NVivo and Atlas TI and MaxQda and QDA Minor. So I would like to focus on QDA Minor, but before I go there, I would like to just focus on 2 very critical analysis or analytical process which normally the qualitative data analysts use. One is called a thematic analysis, which we all use in the qualitative data analysis part, and the second one is called the content analysis. Sometimes it is also called the qualitative content analysis. So these 2 analytical processes, let's just get a fundamental pulse of it before we dive into the software. And okay, so what is thematic analysis? Thematic analysis is a method of identifying, analyzing, and reporting patterns. Okay, so we have talked about patterns. Interchangeably, it is used with themes. So it is identifying, analyzing, and reporting patterns within the data. So it is a definition given by Brown and Clark in 2006. So you can easily, you understand what a thematic analyst does. Okay, so he or she identifies, analyzes, and reports the patterns within the data. So across the data set, they would like to have the similarity or the proximity of certain repetitions of things. So there are, it is basically a multi-phase activity. So there are several phases, like familiarizing with the data, then generating the initial codes, the open coding that we have said, then the axial coding and selective coding, then searching for the themes. But after the initial coding, we must categorize and cluster them, then searching for the themes, then reviewing the themes or the patterns, then defining and naming the themes, and then you go for one step forward. You try to find out the network, map the themes, and then produce the report. So on the left hand side, you have the phases. On the right hand side, the description of those processes involved in those phases. Okay, so these are the phases and the stages. So if I represent it with the help of a flow chart, it starts with the documents. Okay, documents basically are the data, what we get, what we collect from different, you can say, different sources. Okay, and then we have the quotations. We have already said what the quotations are. The quotations are the data segments which requires coding, or which you can say the key input for our research. Okay, then we assign the codes to those quotations, and then we identify the theme on the basis of the similarity of the codes or the clustering of the codes, and then we do the networking. So this is the thematic analysis process, and in case of content analysis also, you will find the same flow chart is being followed. So in case of when we talk about documents, or when we talk about preparing the data, so at the beginning you will find that there is a process of preparing the data. So there we collect all the data from across various sources. Okay, so we have multiple number of data sets, and those data sets are thoroughly scanned, thoroughly read, thoroughly. If you have audio data, you minutely hear those things. If you have a video data, you minutely watch those things. And once you identify the critical areas in data sets, so which can be very critical inputs in terms of your research, then you identify the quotations or the segments. Okay, now once the quotations are identified, you assign the codes to those quotations. Now once the codes are identified, you cluster those codes or classify those codes, and then cluster it or categorize it, and then you develop the themes. The themes are translated into networks, and this actually basically where you try to develop the result. And this is a process of reducing the data. So the reductionist approach comes into play. So reducing the data into themes through a process of creating quotations, coding, and then condensing the codes into clusters and categories. Okay, now what is content analysis? Now it is very similar to that of the thematic analysis. So qualitative content analysis, it allows researchers, to understand the social reality in a subjective yet scientific manner. Okay, subjective yet scientific manner, explore the meanings underlying the physical messages, is inductive, grounding the examination on topics and themes, as well as inferences drawn from them in data. Now, there are several definitions, like Shannon in 2005, he defined content analysis in a very simple way. a research method for the subjectivist interpretation of text and data. So if you talk about the objective paradigm, it is almost a contradictory take on how to interpret the text and data. So we have three different approaches in terms of content analysis. We have a very conventional approach, we have a directed approach, and we have a summative approach. Now, what is the difference in coding system in these three approaches? See, the basic difference is the starting point of the study. So with a conventional analysis, you have an observation at your hand, and the codes are defined during the data analysis, and codes are derived directly from the data. So you have an observational data, codes are derived from the data. In a directed content analysis, you start with a theory, so you have something to fall back. So codes are defined before and during the data analysis. Now the question is, what is this? Codes are defined before the data analysis. Now, when you are defining the codes before the data analysis, that means you are having certain kind of reference. Here, the theory is the reference, or there can be any working hypothesis on any reference model or reference framework from where you can actually prepare your code book. So you have to thoroughly go through the existing theory, or the theory that you are taking, or the existing working hypothesis that you are taking, and then go thoroughly to find out those codes that can be those can be used for your data that you are supposed to collect. So you prepare a code book based on the understanding of the literature, piece of literature that you will be reviewing. You can prepare a code book, it will be almost like a dictionary. So based on that particular dictionary, you can be using it. Then codes are derived from theory or relevant research findings. And then the third one, which is called a summative content analysis, it starts with keywords. So here you don't have any theory, you don't have any subjective kind of a working hypothesis or any consolidated framework or a model to fall back upon, but you have certain keywords. Okay, you have heard certain terminologies or certain words which are the buzzwords. Okay, so the keywords are identified before and during the data analysis. If you are identifying before the data analysis, that means there must be certain sources from where you have heard about these keywords. It can be media sources, it can be any social network sources, it can be from any literary sources. So from where you are extracting certain keywords, which you think is very critical and pivotal in the context of the research problem that you have in your mind. And keywords are derived from interest of researchers or review of literature. So you must be looking for certain kind of sources. Okay, now apart from these three different kinds of content analysis that we primarily see, the conventional approach, the directed approach, and the summative approach, the approaches differ on the basis of from where it starts. The conventional approach starts from an observation. The directed approach starts from a working theory or a consolidated foundation in the form of, say, working hypothesis, models, frameworks, etc. And the summative content analysis starts or is grounded on certain keywords. Now, apart from this, there are certain other classifications of content analysis also, which was initiated or initially proposed by Janis in 1965. Identified three actually distinct type of content analysis based on the purpose of investigation, and it was later also supported by some more researchers like Rippendorf in 2004, then the M. Stone in 2014. These are the recent studies. Grisham in 2016. They use the same, identification and classification of content analysis as was proposed by Janis. So Janis actually identified three. One is called the pragmatical, second one semantical, and third one is sign vehicle analysis. Now, pragmatical content analysis, it classifies codes according to their probable cause and effect. So the issue of causality comes over here, and the emphasis is given on why something is said. Okay. Then semantical content analysis that classifies codes according to their meanings. What do they portray? What do they convey? Now, semantical content analysis can again be categorized into three. One is called the designation analysis, the frequency with which certain objects are mentioned. Attribution analysis, frequency with which certain characterizations and descriptors are used. Assertion analysis, frequency with which certain objects are characterized in a certain way. Now, you should ask a question: can an example be cited where this semantical content analysis on the basis of these three categorizations is done? See, I came across a couple of papers and one particular study. Couple of papers. One particular study is very important and very interesting, which was conducted by Professor Shumon Basuroy. He presently is a professor in University of South Florida, USA. So he conducted or he his research area is basically the entertainment industry. He is from the field of advertising and branding. So he conducted a very interesting research on the Hollywood's take on making sequels of movies. Okay, and so he conducted a study on several sequels, why the sequels are being made, and what evokes this decision making. Okay, and he used this content analysis to a great extent to find out why certain descriptors are viewed over and over again, why certain characterizations become iconic, so that it can be laterally extended to a certain extent. So he actually covered a number of movies, starting from Harry Potter and the Lord of the Rings, and a number of movies which were having sequels. And he also made a comparison between the sequels which were so-called blockbusters in terms of box office returns, and which did not do too well. In fact, the sequels were not liked at all. So he made a comparative analysis and cognitive analysis why certain sequels failed, not in terms of the monetary return or the box office, which is quantification, or which would be very quantitative in nature. He made an attempt to find out why certain movie sequels fail on the basis of character acceptance by the audience. So that was a wonderful task. And I read two papers, and in both the papers the semantical content analysis was used in the context of the entertainment industry. One was used in the context of analysis of a web series you telecasted in Netflix, and the second was with regard to certain purchase behavior on the e-commerce platform. So there the semantical content analysis were used. Frequency with which certain objects are characterized in a certain way, that's the assertion analysis, that was used as a basic theme in one of those papers. And then the third one is called the sign vehicle analysis, classifies content according to the psychophysical properties of the codes. Now, I'm not going into this detail, how this the form and flow. You can easily get it in any good book on qualitative data analysis. And so these two, I wanted to focus on these two. One is the thematic analysis. So what I want you to note is how these how this process flow is done. So the data starts with data, then segment of the data, then codification. Then in between code and theme, there are two sub processes, that is the classification and clustering, then theme, then network. So this is the process of qualitative data analysis that is normally taken up at the software level. The software helps you. But when the coding is done, you see the software will not help you with identification of codes, isn't it? The code has to be designed and devised by the researcher himself or herself. As a result of which we say that softwares and applications, they do have their limitations. They are not as smart as you think they are. But in one of my lecture sessions, one of the faculty members from NMIMS Mumbai, he asked a question: is there any option for auto coding? I said yes, there is a process of auto coding, particularly when you are streaming in data from the social networks. Okay, particularly I have seen this when you are streaming data from your Twitter handles. If you want to analyze the Twitter data, there is a system in Atlas TI particularly which will auto code the data, but that auto code is so pathetic in nature that will never be in tune or in line with the research problem or the research questions that you, or the research objectives, so to say, in your mind. So you have to delete all those auto codes, and you have to churn your own coding, because coding has to be done by the researcher, because that's the thought process, that's the input of the researcher in the entire analytical process. See, once the coding is done very nicely, the rest part, that means classification, clustering, theme identification, network designing, everything can be taken up by the software, because the algorithm will now run based on the similarity of the code, because you will be using certain phrases, you will be using certain words, you will be using certain symbols or logos while coding. So the basic dictionary or the lexicon based dictionary that this particular application tools or the softwares are having, they will have a constant match, and they will try to find out what are the similarities. On the basis of that, they will create all those dendrograms or the clusters, and then the themes and networks. So the first thing that the researcher does, two things which are very important. One, you read the first thing is the transcription that I have already told you in the first session, transcribing the entire experience or the entire interaction. That's number one. Number two, identify the segment within the transcripts, identify the segment within the data that you have managed to collect, which are absolutely critical for the data analysis, keeping in mind what was your research objective, what were the research problem you were trying to assess, etc. What were the gaps identified in the research, where you want to plug in, where you want to contribute in terms of knowledge, etc. So identify the segments within the data set and then codifying it. What best describes the hidden or the underlying or the latent message in those text segments? So these three are the fundamental job of a qualitative data analyst: transcription or enactment as a transcriber, identifying the quotations or the data segments, very critical for analytical inputs, and then finding out the hidden message and codifying it with appropriate tags, and the rest you leave it on the software to identify, to classify, cluster, theme, and network. Okay, so with that, I will just show you some aspects of certain data analysis software. As I've told you that one of the data analysis software that we use or that we recommend to all the scholars or the students, which are to a certain extent free, and you can actually use it without having to purchase it, that is the QDA Miner Lite. Okay, so QDA Miner Lite is having certain limitations in terms of analysis, but in most of the cases it works well. But if you get a hand to a QDA Miner full package, then with QDA Miner, if you are having the access to the full package of QDA Miner, with QDA Miner there are two additional inbuilt tools. Okay, the first one is called a word stat. word stat is basically what we call it the content analysis part inbuilt in the QDA miner. It is specifically for the content analysis, and then there is a second part, or a second you can say add-in, that is called the SimStat. SimStat is basically the statistical interface of this qualitative data analysis software, whereby any kind of statistical application, if it is possible on the basis of the qualitative data, that can be taken up directly on that platform only. Because we have seen that a number of qualitative researchers, they would like to represent numerically a lot of qualitative data. So if it is rationalized and it falls within the logical domain, then you can use the same stat very judiciously. So QDA Miner is one of the softwares that is very robust. It can perform. Actually, you see, all the softwares that we use, all the popular software that we use, like the QDA Miner, the MaxQda, NVivo, and Atlas TI, if you see their interfaces, they are all same, because they undertake the same processes. Okay, so data import is there, then coding, then memoing, then classifying and clustering, then pattern generating, and then networking, etc. So I will just show you first the interface. Unfortunately, I don't have NVivo installed in this machine. I have another machine where NVivo is installed, but I will try to show you the interface of three softwares. One is the MaxQda, the second one is the Atlas TI, and the third one is the QDA Miner. Although you have an Atlas TI session already scheduled for you at a later stage, so I will not enter into Atlas TI, but I will show you the interface. Let us first take a look into the Atlas TI, then I will take MaxQda, and since I will deal with the QDA Miner at the end, I will just go there. So this is Atlas TI 9 that I am having. uh, I will just show you. Say, for example, this is the opening window. Now, how to create a project, or how to create a research analysis, or a window, or or a file for you. You will find a plus sign over here. So if you click it, then you will get to add a new project. You go for a project name, and then you can make additional comment about it, and then you simply click this create button, and a new project will be created. So let me just take one step. I have one particular project already created. So this is once the project is created, you'll have this kind of an interface. Okay, this is the Atlas TI interface. So you can add documents from here, from the top. You have a top ribbon like this, a navigational panel, and left hand side navigational panel, and a big working space. Okay, so whatever work is to be done, it is to be done in this working space. So these two navigational panel will guide you. So the upper hand navigational panel, you will find the document export import. You will have the codifications over here, how to create the codes. And most interestingly, whatever you will be doing here, it will be reflected on this left hand side navigation panel. Okay, so when you start, you will find this number of codes will be 0 within bracket. Okay, it will be 0. Since I have done a lot of work on this particular project, you see the number of code is 40. So if you click this small triangle, you will find this entire code. And this working space is very flexible. You can increase or decrease. You can do anything. Okay, so you will find there are 40 codes over here that I have already created. And I was referring to the two numerical figures within the parenthesis, within bracket. Now you see, say for example, the first one, say there is a code called aviation recovery, and within bracket 1 and 1. What does it signify? Groundedness is 1, and density is 1. That means aviation recovery has been used to code a single segment, or single data segment, or single quotation, and aviation recovery as a code is interlinked with another code. Okay, so one code. So density is 1 and groundedness is 1. Now you have this analyze interface whereby you can go for code co-occurrences table. You can go for code document table. In the code co-occurrence table, you can go for the relational kind of analysis. In the code document table, if you use this, you can go for comparative analysis across geodemographical places. You can make demographical comparison, you can make geographical comparison, etc. Analysis. And one of the most interesting thing is this one, which is called the intercoder mode. Okay, so if you click, it will be enabled. So intercoder mode is required when multiple number of coders are working on the same project. Okay, so in the first session I told you that in academic research project we hardly get a chance to have a collaborative kind of a PhD work, but in there is a chance whereby the supervisor and the scholar are working on the same paper or the same thesis. Then there can be an intercoder agreement between the scholar and the supervisor, and in real time they can actually codify and edit code of the same project. But for the funded project or the collaborative projects where multiple number of coders are involved, and the, the most interesting part or the utility part of this particular feature is, suppose your collaborator is situated in USA, or your collaborator is in Taiwan, or your collaborator is in Australia. So at a real time you can actually code, both of you can code simultaneously at a given point of time. That's one of the finest thing that Atlas.ti offers. As a matter of fact, other softwares also offer the same. Then there is an important feature called import and export, whereby you can import from the social media handle. So there is a Twitter option over here. You can import from the reference manager. Normally it is imported from the EndNote. I am sure that you are using reference managers like Zotero and Mendeley and EndNote, etc. So this is integrated with the reference manager. There are a lot of survey instrument nowadays. We use a lot of survey platforms, isn't it? Like Survey Monkey is there for online surveys. Amazon Turk is there. We are using that. So a lot of online survey platforms are also used. So you can import from a code book that you have already prepared, or from a document group, from any SPSS job, any kind of a statistical data. So I'm just showing one thing, like if you want to import certain Twitter from the social media, so you simply click it, and then you will find. Now one important message over here: you can only access Twitter data if you yourself has an active Twitter handle, because the software will be routed through your Twitter handle only, and they will ask you for the authentication. So initially when you set up your own Twitter handle, initially this particular message will come in a different way. They will ask for authentication. You have to just show the path of your Twitter handle, and the rest of the thing is very simple. You just click, provide the authentication to the software, and the software will take up from there. So you can create an inquiry over here. Say you can create an inquiry like COVID-19 vaccination, which will have a lot of tweets these days, and you can increase the maximum number of tweets. And what it will include, you can find. You can also categorize, like you can also specify, like if you want retweets, it will be a huge corpus of data. If you want images, it will be a very rich data. And then create codings from that. I was referring to as auto coding. If you want auto coding, then you can click a number of things, but the best thing is to click these things off, because you don't want to create any auto coding. So, and all the things are done, and you create a, say for example, COVID-19 vaccination. Okay, now you see, once I do this, and say I want to import only say 10 tweets with images. So once I click this, Then you see the process will start. They are importing tweets. So this will be a real-time import directly from the internet. Okay, so if they find, so they didn't find probably the relevant tweets and they didn't fetch it. So if they find relevant tweets, then they will fetch it. That as simple as that. So that this is the Atlas TI interface. Now if you see the MaxQda interface, I will show you. I have MaxQda 2020 version. So let me see whether it can be accessed. So yeah, this is the opening window of MaxQda. So you can create a new project by clicking this thing. So if you are clicking this new project, it will ask you to create a new project. Say for example, we are giving it a random name, AKDG in the desktop. Fine, and I'm saving it. So once you save it, that means you have created a MaxQda folder for your research. Now you see it also has the same, almost similar kind of interface, which is comparable to Atlas TI. So it has a horizontal, upper horizontal navigational ribbon, and then left hand side navigational panel, and working space where normally the works are done. Okay, and we have the import. You have the text, PDFs and tables. You can import anything from here. Okay, then you have transcripts. So you, if you have transcripts if you have transcripts already made through certain kind of a software, you can import from them. You can take the focus group transcript, images, audio, videos, the Twitter data. Here also, the Twitter data connect. If I want to connect to a Twitter, I want to simply click this. Okay, and it will be connected to the Twitter. Now here I can show you that I need to authorize the app. Okay, so if I authorize the app, MaxQda, it will give you a message that please return to MaxQda to continue your tutor import. So I can return back to my MaxQda. Okay, so the import Twitter content must be used. Say for example, again over here, let me try my luck once more with the COVID-19 vaccination. Okay, the exact phrase, how many? No, I do not want to only 10. Okay, I do not want to include retweets, so I did not click it. So run search. Okay, now you see how many. So these are the tweets, as you can see. So this is what you need to analyze. These are the hashtags. Okay, these are the authors, author real name, author's location. So it is from everywhere: England, India, France, Uganda, Wales, Toronto, Philadelphia. So it's from all over the world. So you can import data. If you directly click this, the import is limited to 10,000 tweets. So probably it has taken up more. I do not know whether it has read it as 10,000 or something like that. Anyway, so that's part of what we were talking about. That's MaxQda. Okay, it's faced with certain issues. Anyway, so let me just deal with this. Yeah, so I have a project in MaxQda already. I was just showing you what it does. Okay, so it imports text and PDFs and transcript and focus group. Then in the code section, you can go for new coding. You have the smart coding tool. You have the subcodes, and then you can assign the memos. Okay, you can have a free memo. You can have in document memos. In document memos, the memos which are attached to a document. You have the code memos and the memos which are attached to the code. Then you have the analysis. These are the various analysis tools. Then you have the visual tools, the Max Maps, the Code Matrix browser. Now, Max Maps, I have certain Max Maps being already created for my project. So you can see these are the kind of maps or networks that you can actually find out at the end of your analysis. These are the models, one case and two case model. So you will get this kind of inputs. Now this is the coding process of MaxQda. Since I will be dealing with QDA minor, I am not showing you, but in the coding process, what you can do in MaxQda, you can create your own code book initially. In the left hand side, you see all the codes have been created. Say I have created a code called brand engagement, and now if I want to code a particular part of this data, suppose this is a data segment, and if I select a particular part of the data segment, so I can select it just as I use the MS Office application and MS Word, say for example, the manner in which you select a particular part of the text, in the same manner you can select any textual part. And then what I can do is this particular code I can select, and I can simply drag it over here. And you see, the moment I drag this particular code line comes to play, and the code brand engagement behavior is assigned to this particular quotation. This is then becomes the quotation of the data segment, for which I felt that this is the ideal code. So if I want to show another, say for example, in some other part of this particular data set, say I'm just doing it randomly to show you the technicalities involved. You just select this you think is very important for your uh, for your qualitative data analysis. So what you can do is, if you want to create something additional means a new one apart from already what is there in the code book, you can go over here, you see, over here. So you can click this, so you can code. Say I'm just randomly coding with XYZ. I can use a color, this kind of violet color. You can put a code memo also. You can write down anything you want to write down. Okay, so just putting it, and you will find I have created a code which will be somewhere around here, which is XYZ or something like that. Yeah, this is XYZ. So if I simply drag it and drop it over here, it will have this XYZ code for it. Okay, so you can associate the certain memos with this code also. I have already associated a memo with that particular code with a random sort of thing. So you see, I have already put a memo over here. You can write down something, so, and you can close it. So it becomes a memo associated with this particular code. So you see, the basic objective with which I showed you the Atlas TI and MaxQda is, fundamentally these softwares, the interfaces are all same. In case of MaxQda, you have two more features like stats, and the second one is the Max Dictio. Okay, Max Dictio will help you to find out the word frequencies. Okay, and again, it will also help you. These are the word frequencies. It will also help you create a word cloud. So all these things, it's at the, I said that at the surface level, you need to have those kind of things. The word frequency distribution, how many times a particular keyword is repeated, and how many times a keyword is repeated in conjunction with another word, which becomes, and then you can add certain to the stop list, the words which are not meaningful to you, like all the articles and all the conjunctions and prepositions. You can easily delete all the numerical figures if you feel that they are not important. You can find out keyword in context, or you can actually specify what is the keyword in context. Then the word combinations you can find out. So you can do a lot with this. The surface level analysis it can be carried out very nicely. So this is all about MaxQda. And now I would like to show you something which is called the QDA miner. So this is the interface, this is the tab of QDA miner. So let us see. I will make a very fundamental kind of thing. Like in a QDA miner, once you open the QDA miner, it will give you certain option, like create a new project, open an existing project, or reopen a recently opened project. So let us just as a beginner, what we need to do is to create a new project. Now create a project from a list of documents or images, import from data files or web services, run document conversion wizard, or create a blank project design structure. So if you want to import from data files or web services, see, you can import from an MS Excel file if you have an Excel file already, or a CSV file, a comma separated value, a TSV file, a tab separated value, or an MS Access file. Now, you see the robustness of this particular application software, how it is seamlessly integrated with others. If I want to access data from any statistical software, like I can bring it directly from SPSS data file or even from Stata. Okay, so I have two different softwares, statistical softwares that can be integrated with QDA Miner. Now the survey platform, you see SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, Survey Gizmo, Voxco, all these Question Pro, these are very significant, survey platforms on the online survey platform. Social media, I can bring it from Twitter, I can bring it from Facebook, I can bring it from Reddit, I can bring it from YouTube, any kind of RSS feed. If you have an active blog site, and if you want to bring it from the travel blogs, if you want to have a certain kind of research on the tourism aspects, you can do that. Then other qualitative software, this is very interesting. I can bring from QSR N6, I can bring it from NVivo. So those are interchangeable formats. Okay, I can bring it from Atlas TI. So you have a project in Atlas TI, and I want to open it with the help of QDA Miner. So I can do it. Then Ethnograph, it's another software. Transana, it's another software. So from all these, Transcriber, this is a transcription based software. So from all these qualitative data analysis software, I can bring in data. Reference Manager, I can bring in data from EndNote, from Mendeley, from Zotero, any kind of RIS file. From Zotero, when you are bringing data, basically you have to convert it into RIS file. From newsfeed, from emails, particularly from Gmail integration can be done. Then there are certain XML and other connections. Say for example, I am interested to create a blank project. Say I'm giving a variable name, say AKDG, a description, say a workshop, okay, and data type, say for example, document. Okay, so I'm adding it, and then I'm just creating it, and I need to save. So just give this name AKTG underscore workshop underscore demo. So I have created one project for myself. Now you see this is the interface, and if you get back to the interface of Atlas TI, if you get back to the interface of MaxQda, and then you come to the interface of QDA Miner, you won't be finding anything very different or significantly different. Okay, so you have a tab of project, so you can import data and export data from over here. You have cases, you can add cases. Okay, you have variables, you can add variable. You have code, you can create code. You have grid, you can view grids. You can retrieve a lot of things. You can analyze, and you see there are two important add-ins over here that I already told you. One is called the content analysis. This is the word stat content analysis, and this is the sim stat. This is the statistical analysis. So this is the blank interface that you normally find in QDA Miner. Okay, so now I can directly actually bring material to the QDA Miner from where from different kind of reference manager. I can bring a document through Zotero. I can bring document through Mendeley. I can bring document through uh, EndNote. So all those three things can be done. Now I can add cases from here. I can add variables from here. Fine. So those are the things. So this is the interface of QDA Miner. Let us open an existing project to show you how the things are done, or how we can actually analyze. So let us open one. Let me close this down. Okay. So I have another demo file ready for you. So fine. So we have populated with some documents, some cases. Now, when we talk about data, the data are actually treated as cases over here. So over here, if I just click on to this data, this will open. Okay. Although we talk these as data, these are actually not data. These are actually the research papers or the journal papers, and I'm using those things to actually help you to see the technicalities involved in coding, in analyzing, etc. So if you just click onto the case, the entire case will open up in this particular phase. So if you have any data with you, any focus group data or case study data, all those data will be treated as cases, and then you can just click it and open it in this particular interface. Okay, so I have done some coding over here also. I will show you how to code. Okay, so once you have all these cases, like how to add the cases, so you go to this case tab and you simply add cases. Okay, and then add new cases. You go for OK, and then they will be finding out the cases, and you can actually specify those cases. Okay, you show the path and the cases will be identified. Fine. Now uh, let us go to the first part that we have. So just kindly treat these things as data. Okay, although these are not data, these are only journal papers. Okay, now the first thing that I have told you in a thematic analysis is to identify the part of the data which you feel very critical for the data analysis. That means the critical input for the data analysis. So you need to find out that particular segment or quotation which is very important for data analysis. Say for example, this is the part. Okay, so you can select it. See, I demonstrated it in MaxQda also. So the things are very simple and almost similar. The activities, the tasks, the operations are pretty similar. So you select it like this, and then what to do? Because I need to code this, isn't it? I need to code this. So the project that I am having over here, it is basically based on heritage branding. Okay, branding of the heritage sites or the ethnocultural branding for the tourism industry. which is shared across the social media. So how this concept of branding of ethnocultural sites and archaeological structures or the heritage of a particular destination is done, and how the brand value grows over the social media in terms of interaction. That's the basic objective of the project. Okay, so as a result of which, you will find that the initial codes that I have created are all, with regard to certain branding and impact of those branding and digital footprint, because we talk about social media. So all those things are with regard to this, but I will show you certain additional coding if it is fitting. So in QDA miner, once you have all the cases in place, the first thing that you want to do is to code. Okay, so you identify the relevant portion in the data that you want to code. Suppose you have identified this portion that you want to code, so you just select it. Okay, say up to this. You are selecting up to this part. Now you have two options. One, you go up to the upper ribbon over here and you click onto the code. Okay, you will have one option which is called add code. So a box will come over here like this. I'm just closing the box for the time being. The second option that you have is to come to this particular area. You see a green pen like structure with a plus sign is there. Okay, so you simply click this, the same window will open. So this is also a shortcut to codification. Now you see in the code definition, there are two specific things, and two things can be taken up simultaneously. One is you assign a code name, and the second thing is you assign which category, under which category this particular code name will be there. So if I assign a code name, say for example, say I'm assigning a very random code name, cultural branding. Okay, now under which category? See, I have already created a category called branding. So from the drop down menu, I will be having the list of categories that I have already created. I have created a category of branding. I have created a category of social media communication, impact, and digital footprint. So if I feel that none of these categories are suitable for this particular code, then I can create my own category. Okay, so I have created a code name cultural branding, and under which category, say intangible cultural heritage marketing. Fine. So this is under this particular category, and I can specify the color of this particular code also. So let me use the red color only. Fine. So I have created a code name. I have created a new category under which this particular code will be featuring. See, I can create a description. You can write down a description, so you can describe the code. Okay, you can fix up certain keywords which are associated with this code name. Say for example, one of the keyword is brand, keyword is culture, so that the machine at a later uh, part, they can easily retrieve anything associated with this particular code name from the keywords which are present in different data. Okay, and then I go for this. Now you see, the moment I clicked, see, this part has been coded. Okay, so if I put the cursor over here, you will get a detail of this. The category, it is mentioned over here: intangible cultural heritage marketing, and code cultural branding, date of creation, and who is the coder. Now come to the left hand bottom side of this particular panel. You see already a new category has been created. You see over here, intangible cultural heritage, and this is the code. Okay, cultural branding. So now the thing is, you can scan the rest part of the data and try to identify whether any other part is suitable for coding, or whether any other quotation, whether any other segment can be identified, which will be very significant for your data analysis. Say, for example, um, say this particular part is very important because it speaks about the social media interaction about different kinds of brands. Okay, now you see, I can do one thing. I can create a new code, that is one, or I can use an existing code if I feel okay. This is also speaking about social connectivity. You come to the left hand side panel under SMC social media communication. You will find one of the codes that I have already created is social connectivity, and I feel as a researcher that this particular part of the data is speaking about the same thing, that means social connectivity. So I want to use the same code that I have created. So what to do? I want to use the same code, so I simply select the portion which has to be coded. Then I go over here in this particular area. You see, there is a window over here, there is a search box over here, and the term cultural branding is featuring in this particular search box. The term cultural branding that we have just used a few minutes back. And let us find out in the drop down menu what we have. In the drop down list we have social connectivity, so I click on social connectivity. Fine, because I know that this particular part is all about social connectivity and the code has to be repeated. So I select social connectivity from here. Now you see another green pen is activated, not this green pen with the plus sign. The green pen with the plus sign is basically for the new code creation, but here I want to use the existing code. That means the code that I have already created, the social connectivity. Okay, so simply I will click this particular green pane which says apply code. That means this particular code. So I click it. You see the social connectivity comes over here. So if any part of the data, if you feel that it is speaking the same thing, the underlying message is same, the hidden message is same, and it can be codified with the help of an existing code that you have already created, you can do so very simply. Okay, now you find another part, and if you want to create a additional code, you can go there. Okay, you can create, say, uh, digital communication, digital visual communication. Okay, say I'm just randomly attributing, and I think this is very synonymous, or this should come under the category which I've already created called the digital footprint. So I am creating a new code, but I am using the same category, new code under the same. So in the first, I have given three examples: new code, new category, existing code, existing category, now a new code under the existing category. So this is a new code under the existing category. You select the category and just click OK. Now you see this particular part is done with a digital visual communication. This is a new code which will come under where which will come under this digital footprint. Now you see, initially the digital footprint, this particular category had only one code. Now we have created another. This is called the digital visual communication. So in this way, you can actually put your codification across all the data set. You come to this set area and you just complete your codification. One more thing I just want to show you. Suppose this is the text that you want to code. So I create a new code. Fine. Say the code name is heritage branding. Okay, and it comes under, say, the category branding. That is already there. So I just, okay, the code name already exists, so it cannot be done. Say, for example, artifact branding. Okay. So I create a new code. Now, interestingly, suppose you see the length of this particular bar. This length of this particular bar, it signifies the length of this particular quotation. So it will match. So it basically is a symbol of to what extent, to what is the physical length of this particular quotation. Okay. Now, if a researcher feels that within this particular segment, the same segment that you have coded just now, there is a very small sentence which speaks about something very specific and which is very important. Say within this particular data segment that you have already coded, there is this particular sentence which is very critical, which is very interesting, and which is very unique, and it is saying about something very unique, something very new. So can I code it within a coded segment? Yes, I can. So again, click on this particular thing, and you call it a digital artifact. Okay, digital artifact viewership. Okay, so it comes under, say, the digital footprint, because it talks about the viewership. So I'm not changing the category. You can change the category also if you want to include a new category, but I want to just give it under the same category. Click OK. Now you see there is a embedification of code. This is an embedded code within a particular code. So there can be a single segment which can be coded multiple number of times depending on the researcher's insight and interpretation and perception about what that particular segment is saying. So if a particular segment is evoking multiple number of messages, or if a particular researcher is being able to find out multiple number of hidden or latent messages out of a single quotation, that can be done. You see over here how many codes have been created. The fundamental code was this big. So if I click this, you will find this is the whole codification was done. Then within that code, this was created. Within those codes, these are created. So you can easily understand that it is not mandatory that a single data segment that a researcher is identifying can be assigned to a single code only. A data segment can be assigned to multiple number of codes. Okay, so it all depends on how the researcher is finding meanings within that particular data segment. So this is all about codifications. And now let us go to the analytical part, or the analysis that is more interesting. So we have two very important tabs over here, over in the upper hand side in the ribbon where my cursor is right now. One is called retrieve, and the second one is called the analyze. Okay, now if I click this analyze, it will open up a number of options. You see, you can get the coding frequency, you can get the code co-occurrences, you can go get the case similarity. Case similarity means what is the similarity across all these cases, the coding sequences, coding by variables, intercoder agreement if you have collaborators, word frequencies. Let us start with word frequency then. Okay, they can build up a this word cloud also for you. So these are very superficial level or surface level kind of analysis, and most of the software, since it is on screen display, you don't have to bother that much. Only thing is your codification should be rationalized, and you should know how to interpret all the findings or the outputs, the visualizations that one makes. So let us go for coding sequences. This is one of the most interesting thing, because a lot of visualization can be done. Now, since we did not have a very explicit description of the variables, so what you will do, you will take the entire document into consideration. What is that entire document? All the cases together. Okay, so if you define the variables over here, which can be defined from here, Okay, so adding the variables and defining the variables, you can go for variable specific kind of a thing. So we have heritage and UGC, and these are user. Heritage is basically, since we are dealing with the heritage branding, UGC is user generated content, social is basically social media. But since we have created the variables but we have not defined the data from where the input will be collected, we will be taking the entire document, that means all the cases together. So where we are searching in, we are searching in the document. So you just click this document and it will feature over here. So the first thing that we should do, after incorporating all the document, we should give a search command. So we just go for a search command. This is the first thing that you get is the frequency matrix. You see, this is the frequency matrix, and this is almost like a correlational table that you get in a normal statistical output, isn't it? So you get all these. If you click on to these cells, you will get the Z value, the P value, everything. Okay, the frequency of B, frequency of A, as per the rows and columns. The brighter the color, like this fluorescent color, the greater is the interrelationship between these two variables. Okay, like sharing of the content and social connectivity, these two are having the one of the most significant interrelationship. Okay, similarly, heritage branding is very significant or a part of this cultural branding. Now, when you will create a network, they will give you an option that how they are interlinked with each other. Okay, whether it is a part of it, whether it contradicts it, whether it is associated with it, whether it is in line with this, etc. Similarly, branded content is associated with cultural branding with 1.61. This is the matrix coefficient. So this color coefficient, basically the brighter the color, the more significant the interrelationships are. So this is the frequency matrix. You will also get the frequency least over here if you are interested, and if you want to support your journal paper or PhD thesis with much more information, you can go for the code A and code B, and then you can get the probability, the value of probability, then the percentage of events, the Z value. Now, as I was telling in the first session, that these days, the qualitative data analysis, as I was telling you, that it has come of ages. And when the people express their doubts about the empirical foundation of qualitative data analysis, can they be interpreted on statistical ground? Can there be certain validation rules based on which we can accept the results as a generalizable, representative, transferable, etc.? So you can easily now see that more or less the results are grounded on the scientific parameters. Okay, so you have the expected value, you have the probabilistic value, you have the Z value. So everything is given. So that's a very important analysis. And then we can find the coding by variables. Okay, so again, we are taking the entire document, that means all the cases together. When you will be working, you can go for selective variables if you feel that two variables are interconnected with each other. It's based on your assumption. So we are putting everything under the search. Now you see what we have got here. This is a matrix. So on the one hand, we have the categorization and the coding, and on the other hand, we have all those cases. Okay, so it's a nice matrix kind of a thing. Fine. Now, from this particular matrix, that means how the codes and the categories are spreaded across the data set. So what are the connectivity of the codes across the data set? Can we have certain similarity? So can we have certain mapping with the help of which better visualization can be done? Can we have certain clustering with the help of which better visualization can be done? So that across the data set, the different kinds of codes and categories that we are having are this similar. So this is one of the steps of building up themes and patterns and etc. So we once you get this particular matrix, once you get this particular table, you can do a number of things in terms of visualization and analysis. Let us do one by one. The first thing, which is very interesting, you can get a perceptual map. Normally, in other softwares, in Atlas TI and in MaxQda, I didn't find this in NVivo also. The perceptual map, in case of a perceptual map, there are three planes: the X, Y, and Z. So if I want to find out how the groups that I have created, how they are spreaded across that particular cross section of the three planes, X, Y, and Z dimensions, that means I want to create a three-dimensional map to visualize how close the codes are, or how close the categories are. So the first thing that I can do is to click on to, you see on the right hand top corner, a number of tabs are in the activated condition. So you can use any of these tabs to get a proper visualization of the data. Okay, so you can click this. This is called the correspondence plot. Okay, correspondence plot. Now, this is having both the groups and the code. Say I want only the codes, so it will be like this. This is a two-dimensional map. You see, I told it about X, Y, and Z, but unfortunately this is having only X and Y. So let us convert it into a three-dimensional map. You just simply click this 3D map. I want only the code. Now you see, this is very interactive. You can move it around for better visibility, and then you can take a printout or a snapshot. You see, append graphic to the output. On the right hand side corner, this is one. Append graphic to the output. There will be a report manager which will append this graph for you. So when you are writing a paper for a journal, and if you feel this particular perceptual map is very important. See, I haven't, since this is a demo file, I haven't describe these dimensions, but you will definitely describe these dimensions. What does this dimension signify? This is X, this is Y, and this is Z. What does this dimension signify? Say, for example, this signifies, say, marketing initiative. This signifies tourist motive. This, since I was doing on that, this signifies availability of heritage sites in the destination. So across the three dimensions, how the codes are clustered. Okay, then we have certain kind of interpretations. Okay, now if I want to remove the codes, it's a blank planes. I want to see the groups. Okay, these are the cases. Now, so how the cases are spreaded across these three dimensions, I can also see this. So this will give me a very nice kind of a visualization. Particularly, people use it for the codes. So I just close it. Uh, then I can find out with the help of a bubble chart how the things are interrelated with each other. So we have all these cases, row wise, all these cases, and all these are actually the codes. Fine. So how across these cases, that means across the data set, how these codes have been used. Okay, so what are the proximities of these codes? The size, references the time of occurrence. So the larger the size, the occurrence number is greater. So the user generated content probably has occurred more times compared to any other codes for this particular case. So the interpretation becomes very easy, and the visualization supports the interpretation. So this is the crowd frequency for file, and then you can go for simple simple analysis that we do for say, for example, I select a row, and then I simply go for this bar diagram, the simple charts. But if I want to have some kind of you can say mm, there is another option. Right now I'm not seeing it. There is one option whereby you can select a multiple number of these things. Let me check whether I can get it. Multiple number of these options whereby there is a chance of getting a comparative analysis between these three. Uh, anyway, the feature, I'm not finding it right now. Okay. But for a single row, it's easy to find, but I want to see the uh, multiple numbers. I'm not getting that. Anyway, so you can actually make a comparison between the different code levels. I will just check and come back how it can be done. Anyway, the other things that you can do is to go for a heat map. Heat map will give you certain idea of how these things are distributed. They can create a dendrogram. Okay, so all these codes are there and how they are distributed across the different cases and how they are correlated with each other. So clustering is formed about the cases, that means the data sets, and the clustering is formed about the codes also. So the initial level clusters, or the clusters that has been formed at the initial level, like heritage branding and ethnocultural branding, a very initial level clustering, or the artifact branding and the digital artifact viewership at the very initial level, these are the very strong clusters. But if you go to the later stages, you will find the later stages clusters which are not very strong. So the cultural branding with say the visitor impact or the tracking of the social media involvement. So these are the clustering which has taken place at the fag end of the agglomeration process. So at the initial phase, clustering is very important to report in your papers and your thesis. Okay, so digital visual communication with cultural branding. This is the initial level clustering, very significant. Artifact branding with digital artifact viewership. That is the initial phase clustering. That is also important. User generated content with visitor impact. That is a initial phase clustering. That is also important. Sharing of the content and social connectivity, they are interrelated with each other. Initial clustering, that can be reported. And then there can be certain additional reports like the broad sectional report at the middle of the agglomeration process. That also becomes very significant. So this can also be represented. This is the heat map. Then you have the code dendrogram. If you want the code dendrogram separately, you have the group dendrogram. Dendrogram means these are all the cases, all the data set. That means all the case studies, or all the FGI, the focus group interviews, all the schedule interviews, or all the KIF, the key informant interviews. And then the clustering statistics that you want to have. This is much more numerical and much more objective in nature. So this is a group into group, and then you have the clustering. So you can actually enrich your paper, you can actually enrich your thesis with a lot of objective support. Okay, and those researchers who want to analyze it further, they want to take it up at a different level altogether, they can actually use another thing which is called, probably you have heard about something called Tableau. Tableau is a very strong, you can say, kind of analytical tool which analyzes data. So over here you will find there is an option of run Tableau. So if I click it here, it will be directly taking you to the Tableau software, which will help you to make the data which will help you analyze the data further. Okay, so you can take help of W also. So you see all these artifact branding, etc., has come over here. So if you shift different things over here, and then you have measure of, if you filter by culture, minimum count. Okay, so you can have a number of parameters based on which you can create your own table very randomly. You create take the own file, and you have different kinds of table. You can have cross-sectional representations. These are all advanced level, data analysis, which requires a further analysis and interpretations. But you can do that. Actually, you have a multiple number of tools with the help of which you can create a lot of analytical outputs. Okay, making your thesis, making your paper much more representative. Okay, so that is one. In the analysis part, one of the most important thing is this code co-occurrences. How many times a code is co-occurring? Co-occurring means how many times it is occurring together. So the repetitiveness of the code. Okay, so in the code co-occurrence, there are few things which are very technical in nature. So we are searching in the entire document. All the codes are loaded. Okay, I have not left out any code, so I have ticked mark. So if you want to now find a relationship between specific codes, you can easily tick and click. Okay, occurrence obviously within the case. Now this is very important, which particular coefficient or which particular index you want to use. So whether you can use Jacquard's coefficient or Sorensen's coefficient or Oclear's coefficient or cosine theta or anything. Normally we use the Jacquard's coefficient, which is a very popular form of coefficient to find out the clustering process. Real-time animation you need to click because it will give you real-time result. The tolerance level to be fixed at a very low figure. So I have used this kind of a figure. A maximum iteration you can increase, but I think 500 is very acceptable. Now there are two options. The initial configuration, you see there are two options. If I use a randomized location, then I have to specify a lot of things, the seed and the history. So basically, let us use the default one, which is called the classical scaling. And then after fixing all these options, let us go first for the dendrogram. See, this is the dendrogram on the basis of this particular code. Number of cluster is 2 and the cluster is color coded. This is blue and this is almost ochre yellow in nature. So this is the initial dendrogram. I can create a 3D map over here. So again, this is a representative of the dendrogram. Okay, so how it is oriented. I can go for the link analysis. This is the network. Okay, now it is interesting to note that what you can do with this particular network, there is a option called filtration. So already there is a target code which is called artifact branding. By default, any particular code will be taken as a target code. So what you need to do, you have to reset the filtration process. So you just select this and remove it back to the search list. Now you see, I want to find out the relationship between, say, not all these brand. I want to find a relationship between a network between branded content and branded content and social connectivity with respect to cultural branding, which is having some kind of a visitor impact. And since I'm using cultural branding, let us use the ethnocultural and the heritage branding also. Okay, So all the three aspects of branding are taken into consideration: heritage, ethnocultural, cultural, and I want to see it how they are related with the branded content, the social connectivity over social media, and the visitor impact. Okay, so similarity, I can just fix up like this. So I'm just putting it somewhere around, say, 75. The primary links, initially I want to see the primary links and the direct links only. And after setting up this entire thing, I will just click apply. Okay, close. Now you see this is the network that I am getting. So you can actually uh, you know uh, clear out or reorganize your map for better visualization. Okay, but I can check on the secondary links also. So if I check on the secondary links, you will find a lot more links. If I just put on the primary links, probably it will be reduced. The secondary links will be activated if you use the secondary links only. So if I close the direct links only, there can be a number of indirect links. So I can find out that a particular code is impacted through a different code. Like for example, this digital visual communication is having an impact or a network with a digital artifact, and then it is going for this user generated content. Okay, so in this way we can actually select our own codes, and we try to find out how they are in a relationship, or how they are networked with each other. Now on the basis of this particular network, we can find out what is the emerging theme, what is the emerging pattern, what is the emerging theory, how the codes tell a story to us, how we can develop a theory from this. We can develop the proximity analysis also. Now proximity analysis, it gives us a much more, see, the basic difference between the dendrogram or the cluster analysis and a proximity plot is, in case of a hierarchical clustering, it is just a hierarchical process of linear clustering of the codes. Okay, it doesn't allow us to identify whether a particular code is very close to another set of codes, or how close to another set of codes. Okay, so it just clusters on the basis of certain proximity, but how close they are or how interrelated they are, that can only be visualized with the help of this proximity plot. Say by default, this artifact branding is taken as the basic proximity analysis. I want to club artifact branding with, say, branded content. So add branded content to the target items. Now you see the branded content is a darker yellow color, which is almost a ochre yellow, and this is the yellow color, the artifact branding. So with a reference to ethnocultural branding, the impact of branded content is much higher compared to that of artifact branding. With reference to heritage branding, again, branded content found is much higher compared to that of artifact branding. But when it comes to digital artifact viewership, you see the branded content viewership is much less compared to that of artifact branding itself. So we can now make a very precise analysis. Okay, so there is another one. Probably I do not know whether I will be able to show you. There is something called Shilute. Okay, it's not here. Anyway, then you have all the supporting tables and statistics. This is the co-occurrences, the code co-occurrence represented with the help of heat map, or this is almost similar to that what we have as a correlation table in the statistical procedure. This is the code co-occurrences, and then how many times code co-occurs. Say for example, this ethnocultural branding, this is a code, it is co-occurring 9 times with cultural branding. Say, for example, heritage branding, it co-occurs 10 times with ethnocultural. Now, then we can actually find out. See, when you are writing the interpretations and the results and the outputs, there has to be a lot of logical support to what you are actually, interpreting, and what you are concluding. So, when you are saying that ethnocultural branding is very closely related, say heritage branding is very closely related to ethnocultural branding, or the artifact branding or the visitor impact is very closely related to social connectivity. So more the social connectivity, the digital visitor impact is much more. So social connectivity means social interaction over social media, and as a result of that, the visitor impact is going up. So you can easily visualize this, the interactivity between the co-occurrences of these two codes. Now, there is another chart which we can supply, is called the code similarity. You can use this also, and if you want to support it with the agglomeration process of group 1 and group 2, and then the similarity, you can do that also. So a lot of things which you can take help of. I just wanted to show you something which is called the shilute, but I'm not getting it here anyway. Yeah, this is the shilute analysis. Now you see, this is the clustering, isn't it? The clustering of the codes. So we have these are the codes, and it is a two cluster solution. Two cluster, how can you identify the, you can identify easily over here with the help of the color codes. So it's a blue color, that's the one cluster, and the second cluster is this orangish yellow kind of a thing. Now, which clusters are very significant? The clusters which are formed at the beginning of the agglomeration order. See, this is the agglomeration order, and we have used the Jacob's coefficient that we have already set in. Now, these are the early clusters. This is one, this is one, this is one, this is one. These four are the early clusters. Then in the midway of the clusters is this branded content with ethnocultural branding and heritage branding. It forms a cluster. Then sharing of the content and social connectivity is kind of, see, this particular cluster which are formed at the later half of the agglomeration schedule, those are slightly, you can say, insignificant. You may or may not report them. Now, why I was just pointing out to the shilute analysis, the one thing is, in cluster analysis, you see, the quality of the clusters are not very clear. So whether we have got good clusters, whether we have got bad clusters, acceptable clusters, unacceptable clusters, we do not have any idea about it. So we have one analysis which is called a shilute analysis. You see, this silute analysis will give you the quality of the clusters. The average shilute coefficient is 0.910. Now, the reference figure for which we can say that the clusters are very good and acceptable is a figure called of 0.700. So anything over 7, you have a good cluster. That means a quality cluster. So over here you can see the shilutes are having very good values, isn't it? It's the average shilute coefficient is 0.910. Now with this particular analysis, you can support your cluster findings also, and you can very confidently say that my cluster quality of the cluster, I have a two cluster solution that can be found on the basis of this two colors distribution. One is this one. This is the entire shilute analysis of this cluster, and this is the second one. In both the cases, the average shilute coefficient is 0.910. So the quality of the cluster is very good to accept for code co-occurrences and all that. So that will be a very confident kind of data analysis supported by all the logics. You have other analysis also. You can go for content analysis. Okay, as I have told you, I do not know whether it will work. Content analysis with the help of the word stat. As you know, the word stat basically is the content analysis tool which is supplied with. Let me see whether it is working or not. Okay, so it is having more than 20 cases. Anyway, so you can actually enter into an advanced kind of an analysis with the help of this thing, content analysis with the help of a word stat, or if you want to do advanced statistical kind of an analysis, you can use this statistical analysis which is called a simstat. So if you want to have a much more advanced statistical analysis, you can take the help of this. Okay, so this is all about QDA miner. There are a lot of applications of QDA miner. So if it's difficult to showcase all the aspects in a single day, but fundamentally I have tried to show you how the codings are done, how the memos are issued, how the categorization along with the codings are done, how the analysis, the prima facie analysis, like word frequency counting, word cloud creation, then all those mappings, networkings, code co-occurrences, clustering, interpretation of the dendrogram on the basis of the clustering and on the basis of the Shillute analysis. All those things can be done uh, quite well. So with this, I am just stopping over here, and if you have any question, you can ask right now.